Awesome. Thank you so much, Lori. So I'm going to jump in right away. I didn't really get to go over exactly everything I wanted to yesterday, but I do want to just going to give you a very broad overview of the e-filing system and what you can expect to see when this goes live at the end of March is our current projected go live date. Just a couple of things to start off. We will, like I said, it'll go live at the end of March. We will have a local rule to accompany that. It will be optional for a good amount of time. I'm not sure when the court wants to transition to a mandatory e-file, but it will be going in that direction, as I'm sure some of you are familiar with PAC-file, and the criminal dockets are all mandatory e-filing now with obvious exceptions. So just did want to let you guys know that up front. I also wanted to let you know that we will be doing a training after yesterday. It became apparent that I'll need to do kind of a separate training for support staff and law firms with multiple attorneys, so that you can see how you can organize your law firm on e-file with all of the profiles that you might have. But you'll need this kind of baseline that we're going to go over today prior to that type of training. And I'll indicate where we'll go over in more detail those areas as we go through here today. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, and I have it up on my other screen, so I can see them as they come in, and I'll try to answer them in real time. But with that, let's get started. I'll apologize. I'm looking at this screen because that's where my mirror screen is, and this is where my camera is. So I'll be bouncing back and forth. But so this is what you will see when you click on the link that will be on the PROTS webpage for e-filing. This is through Thomson Reuters. It's through the same company that does our case management system. So it's all linked together, and it may look very familiar to you if you've used our public access for CTrack at any point. The first thing that you'll need to do when e-filing goes live is to register as an e-filer. You will come to this page and you'll click down here, register as an e-filer. That's going to bring you to this page. There's quite a bit of information up here. Some of the things that I do want to go over are, this will be our local rule. It hasn't been published for comment yet. That is coming. Excuse me. This is very important. If you've never filed in Monroe County before, that means in paper or e-file. So for example, if you are an attorney brand new to the area, or you're a brand new attorney, it is very important that you email the PROT first before you try to register as an e-filer. And I'll show you why that's important in just a second as soon as we get through the rest of this information here. Once you've submitted information to the PROT, they'll send you a confirmation email to let you know, hey, you can go ahead and register as an e-filer now. Please register one time. And if you're unsure if you've registered, you can contact the PROT's office. And if you have any questions about any e-filing, this is the PROT's office number, and you can also send an email if that's easier. So in order to register as an e-filer, if you are an attorney, you'll, in this drop-down, select registered representative. And this is why it's important to contact the PROT's office first if you're an attorney who's never filed in Monroe County before. And that's because your e-file profile will be connected to what's called an index entry within our case management system. That just means that it's going to connect you with your bar ID in our case management system. And it is done by your attorney bar ID. So you'll see here, there's a red asterisk. When you select registered representative as the type of e-file registrant that you are, attorney bar ID is required. That being said, if you are support staff in a law firm and you want to file on behalf of an attorney, you would just select e-file user. That's not going to require a bar ID, and you can fill out your information here with your name, your contact email, your business address, and just go through it like that. You won't have to enter your bar ID. As support staff, you will need to be connected to an attorney in your office in order to file on behalf of someone. But that's one of those things that we're going to go over in the additional training, is how to connect support staff with attorney e-file users, and how to organize that for your law firm. What's important now is that if you wanted to add your legal organization down here, you can do that on this page, or you can simply put in your registration information and deal with this part of it at a later time. And I'll show you where to find this information that you can update as necessary. So the things that are required up here, you'll need to create your own username. It doesn't have to have any special characters, so it doesn't have to be an email with an @something email address. You'll see in a moment, mine is just J Spencer. You'll have to create a password and confirm that password. There will be options to change that in the future if you need to. You'll have to put in at least one email address, and it has to be a different email address than any other e-file profile. That is because once you enter this email address and you go through the rest of this page and click next, the system's going to send you an email that you have to access, and you have to verify your email address before you can even log into the system. Let me see if I have, I'm sure I have an example of that. One moment. I don't have one readily available, but it'll be a system email like this. This is when my registration was approved. You'll get an email that'll look very similar to this. There'll be a link somewhere over here that it says, it'll be the word verify, and it'll be blue with the underlined like this is here. You'll just click on that and it'll direct you back to the e-file homepage and tell you that your email's been verified and you can go ahead and log in now. This is just the regular reCAPTCHA to prove that you're not a robot. And terms and conditions you can read here. I will go over just a couple of these. We will have a user guide available to you that you can access, and it'll have screenshots and kind of walk you through the different processes that are available in e-file. Again, our local rule that's forthcoming. So just some general policies about, the things that you're uploading have been scanned for viruses and they don't have any, things of that nature. And then down here, when using PayPal, that is the company that we will be using for collecting fees for e-file. I believe, and I need to clarify with Thomson Reuters, this 5% fee, user fee, is only if you have a PayPal account. You have the option to just check out as a guest and use a credit card, a debit card, whatever kind of card you want, but you do have that option. You don't have to have a PayPal account in order to e-file. And I believe, but don't hold me to it quite yet, but I believe this 5% fee is only if you have a PayPal account. but that is PayPal's policy. So we have put that in here. You'll just check that you agree to the terms and conditions, click next. And like I said, at that point, an email will be generated for you to verify your email address. So once you've verified your email address, you will log in with the username and password that you created. And this is the e-filing homepage. A couple of things that I want to go over real quick here. You'll see up here that I've got my name and Brandy Bellinger underneath. In our internal trainings, I was assigned to a law firm that exists within our case management system with that name. I don't want to get too into the weeds on the law firms and organizations and things like that. But for now, suffice it to say, if you see your name up here and then this italics underneath with your law firm name, that means that you are filing on behalf of an attorney. You can switch that by coming to this user account information, clicking on switch association, and this pop-up will come up here. The drop-down will be either the legal organization that you belong to or personal account. So as an e-filer, you can file things pro se in your own case if you have the need to do that. I have a feeling that most people will stay in this association for their work with an e-file. Other things in this user account bundle here are is the My Account link. When you click on that, here's where you can come in. If you need to change your password, you'll do that over here. If you need to change any of your user information, you would do that here. If you accidentally registered as an e-file user and you meant to register as a registered representative, you can change that here. But again, it'll make you put in an attorney bar ID. You can change your mailing address, your email address. And here is where you can, again, link to the associated legal organizations. And that is one of the things that we'll be going over in a separate training. But just so that you're familiar with that, you can access that here. If you didn't do it in the registration page, you do have the option to add legal organizations later on. You can also deactivate your account here. So if you have support staff that is leaving the office for whatever reason, you can deactivate their account and it will remove their ability to log into eFile. Other items in the user account bundle are My Organizations. Again, those are just any legal organizations. Typically people just belong to the one, but you could have multiple organizations. This is the Switch Association that we already visited. My Subscriptions. These will be cases that you subscribe to. So if you are filing on a case or if you've created a case, those will be here. It takes a little bit of work on the back end for the PROT for those things to appear here, but that's not for your concern. But if there is a case that you believe should be on this list and it's not in your eFile profile, then you should contact the PROT's office. A couple of other icons we have up here. This little speech bubble with the number are your notifications. You can come down to view all, and this will be all the notifications that you received within a certain date range. You do have to put a date range and it may be limited. It can't be more than 3 months. So this date span can't be more than 3 months. You can search your notifications. If you have a particular type of notification that you want to look up, you can select that here from template. If you have, a particular status that you want to look up, you can look up that here. But you'll get notifications for things like, you can see here, I had to reset my password. So that's what this notification is. This was in training when I was added to the legal organization. First, it was rejected so that we could walk through how that works, and then it was accepted so that I could be put, you could see the difference here when you're filing on behalf of yourself versus on behalf of an attorney for a client. This is the type of notification that you'll get when you've submitted a filing. And this is a filing that was submitted, a new filing. So this was a complaint, because you'll notice that there's no case number in here. Whereas here, that filing was accepted and it was given a case number. So that's another type of notification. If you submit a filing on a pre-existing case, the case number will also appear in this notification. If the display all is, it'll just bring all of the unread notifications that you have pending in this little pop-out box. This icon here, the cart, is just like any other shopping website or any website that you would place an order on. This is your cart. The cart, you can do multiple filings in one cart. So if you've got three filings that you need to submit on 3 different cases, you can do those back to back to back, and then you can pay them all at the same time. And we'll go over this page again when we come back to it after we've walked through a filing. If you're on a page and you want to go back to your home page, you can simply click on this logo up here and it'll pop you right back to the home page. The home page is important because of this little cog here. So if you click on this, this can edit your dashboard. These are all called widgets, and they're widgets for different purposes. As you can see, you've got a widget for approved filings, card activity, draft, error, all the way down. If there is a particular type of notification or information that you want readily available as soon as you log in, such as errors, if there's an error in one of your filings, or filings that have been rejected, or that you've received service on, you can mark these boxes here and click save, and your homepage will now have these widgets. What will happen is when you have something that falls into one of these categories, it's going to be listed right here for you. It'll have the court, which will always be the Court of Common Pleas here in Monroe County, the case number, and the filing type. You can always go back and your widgets, you can have them all by clicking that up here, or you can have none of them, and you can change this at any time. You can also move these around. So if you want to prioritize service received and have that right up front, you can do that. This is the help button. It's on all of the screens. If there's nothing for the system, if there's no help information for that, whatever screen you're on, this is the alert that you'll get. This button here will expand the screen. It'll get rid of your menu over here. So if I hit that, it just expands that screen. I can get the menu back by clicking that button again. And this will be at the top of all of the screens you'll see as we move through. On the home page is this menu. You will not see this administration tab when you are logged in here. This is because of my profile and the permissions that I have, but you will see case search, create filing, and filings. Case search just allows you to search for a case. You'll have to select the court. It's, like I said, it's always going to be Monroe County Court of Common Pleas. Then you can search by case number, case categories, all of these different fields here. You can narrow your search. It's very similar to the public access search. So I'm not going to go through this in detail, but just know that it's here. It can be helpful. And then the filings tab will have approved, draft, error, rejected, and submitted. I started a draft earlier, so you can see what it looks like to come back to a draft. I've started a motion petition filing on a pre-existing case. The case number will be here. The motion petition or the draft filing that I have is here. Again, there's a search bundle up here at the top so that if you have multiple drafts and you're trying to get to one specific one, you can search for that. From this page, you can put a check mark next to any of the items that are listed here and either add it to your cart if you're ready, ready to send that to be submitted for e-filing, or you can delete it if it's just a draft that you're not going to be using anymore. Similar for the submitted, except there's no check boxes over here. This will just list all of the filings that you've submitted on your profile. And again, you can search for it, you can click into it. This will bring you to your filing summary. And you'll see, what the fees were called, who they were from, all the different information. We'll go over each of these boxes as we move through how to file a specific filing. So let's move on to that. When you are ready to submit a filing, you're going to come to this Create Filing tab and click on it. This information up here is a caution for pre-existing cases. If you are filing to a pre-existing case, you will need to enter the case number in a very particular way, or it's going to tell you that case doesn't exist. So for example, I just had that draft on 33 Civil 2017, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So anytime you're creating a filing, you have to choose the court, and then your filing category will either be a new case or an existing case. I'm going to show you this existing case, the case number issue here. So I know that 33 Civil 2017 is the case number that I want to file on. But I put that in, and when I click out of the box highlights red, and I don't have any further options. It's because I haven't entered the case number correctly. It's very important to include all the leading zeros and the dashes when you're entering a pre-existing case number. The first portion of this case number will always have 6 digits. So like here, the case number is 2 digits long. I need to enter 4 zeros. I have a question coming in. I'm afraid I don't understand what is meant by draft in this context. Could you explain that a little bit more? Absolutely. So let me come back to that. I will answer that question. It'll be a little bit easier once we move through the filing process just a little bit. I'll show you what I mean by draft. So in order to be able to file on this case number, you have to have those leading zeros and the dashes. Now, when I click out of this will highlight green, and I'll have an option under filing type. Oops. I'll have all these options. So that's the only difference when you're filing. That's the biggest piece of advice that I have for you when you're filing on a pre-existing case, to make sure that your case number is correct. We're actually going to go through the filing process for a new case, just so that I can show you a few more things than you would encounter with a filing on a pre-existing case. So when your filing category is selected as a new case, you'll have to fill out all of these different drop downs. These are dynamic drop downs. So you're not going to be able to jump to filing subtype until you fill out all the ones above it. So for this first case category, you'll pick civil, civil NR stands for civil non-reportable, and family. Primarily, you'll be working in either civil or family. Today, we're going to do civil, but I'll show you what I mean by dynamic dropdown. So from civil, now you see this dropdown kind of popped out because now you've got options under case type. So when you come through here, if you select tort, now you have options for case subtype. Those are all of these options. We're going to pick a motor vehicle tort case. Now you've got a filing subtype. We're going to start this case with a complaint. And you'll notice that the filing subtype was automated because you only have one choice for filing subtype under the filing type complaint. Now, if I were to come back up here and say, oh, actually, it's not, this is not what I want to be filing right now. I actually need to be filing on a family case. All of these have now disappeared and you'll have to start with case type. You can file on custody or divorce cases. And your options from here change. We're going to go back to just filing a plain old civil motor vehicle case, starting it with a complaint. We've got all those filled in. You're going to click next. This is the filing progress. You have to complete each of these tabs up here in order to be able to file the case. So I told you that I would come back to your draft question. Here's what that means. Say I get to this point in the filing and I'm called away from my desk and e-filing times out. So I'm brought back to my homepage. And if I were a little further along in the process, it would probably be really frustrating that, you know, I did all that work and now I have to start from the beginning, but you don't. If you click next on that first page, it will save your draft. So you come to your drafts and you can say, okay, here it was, the complaint that I was working on today, and you can click right back into that. It'll bring you to your filing summary. And all you'll need to do is come down to the very bottom and select edit filing. It'll take you right back to the page where you left off on. So that's what we mean by draft. It's just a draft in the filing process. So from here, we're going to need to add case parties. And we're going to start with the plaintiff since that's who we represent. You'll pick a role. You can see there's a bunch of different options here when you're adding a party. We're just going to do a plain plaintiff defendant case today. So we're picking role as plaintiff, and type just means it's either a person or an organization. Obviously, organizations can be involved in civil cases. And so if you are either representing an organization or suing an organization, you'll have to indicate that in this type dropdown. Today, we're just going to do two people, one versus another. This box here, representation, is not required. But if you're filing on behalf of a plaintiff, you're going to want to fill in that they have an attorney. The options here are attorney or self-represented. You can also leave it blank. So when we get to the defendant, if you don't know if the defendant's represented or not, you can certainly leave that blank until you know, or until it's updated in the system by the prot or entry of appearance, whatever the case may be. So we're going to select attorney since we're a law firm representing the plaintiff, and we're going to enter our plaintiff's information. We're just going to do John Doe and fill in as much information as you can. And then once you finish with the address information, you'll get to the representer box. You'll click on that link and it'll bring you to a search page. You can search by, it either has to be last name or bar ID. So if you have, if you have your attorney's bar ID number and that's the attorney that you're filing on behalf of, you can enter that right here. Or if you are the attorney, you can enter your bar ID here. You can also just enter a last name. What this is searching is the PROTS case management system for all the attorneys that they have within their case management system. So again, this is also why it's very important. If you've never filed in Monroe County, you have to contact the PROTS office because they have to manually input your information into the system. So we're going to just pick this first attorney here as the attorney who's representing plaintiff. And then you'll see down here, there are 2 contact information bundles. They are defaulted to an email and a work phone. There are options to change that if you want to have 2 emails, if you want to have a home phone versus a work phone or a cell phone or a fax number, that's available here too. You only have to put 1 piece of contact information. So with e-filing, it's probably going to be an email. Are you sure you want to remove this item? This is just to confirm that, yes, I want to get rid of that extra contact information. If you do that accidentally, you can just click add contact and that box will pop back up again. I'm going to put in my email. Down here at the bottom, you'll see that there is an add self button here. This really is only for pro se filers because what happens is it will populate the name, address, and contact information that you have on your profile. So I don't suggest using that button unless you're a pro se filer. It's probably going to be a lot easier just to go through all of the boxes and enter your client's information. Once you've entered everything correctly, you'll click save and it'll bring you right back to the party information again because you'll need to add the defense. And here we're going to leave representation blank because we don't know if they're represented by an attorney or not. But I will show you that if you do select attorney, that's when this representer box pops up and it becomes a mandatory field. So if you leave this blank, you don't have to enter an attorney. This is what I did yesterday. I don't know where this name came from. But there we go. John Harper is the defendant. And then again, an email, I'm going to put my personal email so that we don't get any errors. And remove this extra contact information. So now we've got our plaintiff represented by an attorney, defendant, we're not sure, so we're leaving that blank. We've added all of the relevant parties. If you need to add another, you just keep clicking this link here until you get all the parties that are involved. When you're done adding parties, you'll click the next button. And that'll take you to what's called the filing information page. This top bundle here, details, this comment section is if there's something that you want the PROT to know about this filing. Move back to the last page. I have a question. If you remove, and I did see, Steve, I saw your question about civil NR. I will contact, I'll circle back to you on that at the end. But this question, must you remove the extra contact info field? What happens if you just leave it blank? If you just leave it blank, you'll get an error that it's required. So if you have that extra contact field there, it will have, you'll see that there were red asterisks by the type and then the input field. If it's there, it's required, but you can remove it if you only want one type of contact information for that party. So this details bundle up here, the comments, like I said, really just if you want the prop to know something specific about this filing, you can make a note in here. It's not going to end up on the docket or a part of the filing, but it will go to the prop's office. And so, you know, it's not required for you to put any comments here. These other boxes here, emergency, I think you'd really only use that if you're filing on an existing case. If you've got an expedited motion that you want to file, you would click this, check this box to let the prop know that it is an emergency filing. If it's an amended, so if you're filing an amended complaint, you would check this box. And if you want the filing to be confidential, you would click this box. I will caution you, however, that this is not the only place that you would need to indicate confidentiality. If you want the document to be a confidentially filed document or limited from public access in any way, there is another place that you'll need to indicate that as well, and you'll have to give a reason for the confidential marking. I'll show you that when we do it, but just keep in mind that this is not the only location that you'll need to indicate that something is confidential. Filer information. This is where you will indicate which party you're filing on behalf of. So since we're filing a complaint on behalf of the plaintiff, you'll just check the box next to the plaintiff's name. If, for example, in a custody case, you're trying to file on a pre-existing custody case as the grandparents are trying, they want to be added as interveners. That's where you could come in here and file it on behalf of, and then insert a name here if they are not already a party to the case. That's what this box is for. Filing additional information, you have to fill out whether it's inside or outside of the arbitration limits, whether it's a class action, an MDJ appeal, or per se. And if any of this is sounding familiar, that's because all of this information and all of the drop downs that we filled in up to this point are part of the civil cover sheet, which will not be required as a separate filing. You don't have to, if you're e-filing, as long as you're filling out all of this information as you would on the civil case cover sheet, you no longer have to file a civil cover sheet because the e-filing system, CTrack, our case management system, it's all being collected in a manner that is okayed by the AOPC. I have a couple of questions that have come in here. Let's see. Can you have multiple emails for contacts such as attorney and staff? Absolutely. You can select any, you can put 3 emails in there, how many ever contact information you want on that for that particular party. You can enter that in that that pop-up screen for adding a party that we were previously at. You just have to change the drop downs. Let's see. Next question is, do you accept filings outside of prop hours? I.e., if I file something at night, will it be recorded that day or the next business day? Great question. So because e-filing is available 24/7, you can file outside of the prop's business hours, just like you can with pack file in criminal cases. What'll happen is there'll be a submitted date and there'll be an accepted date. So the submitted date is what's going to count for your purposes as attorneys and filers. Your submitted date, let's say, for example, you have to file a brief by today, 3/8. If you file it today after the prop's business hours, so long as the order did not have a specific time in it, such as, due end of business 3/8, then filings are accepted right up until 11:59 p.m. of that day. So your submitted date will still remain 3/8. Even if it's accepted for filing the next day by the PROT, when they open for business, it will still be recorded as having been submitted on 3/8. I hope that answers your question. If not, send me a follow-up and I'll circle back to that. Okay, so here we're going to put that this is outside of arbitration limits and it's none of these things, so we're not going to check any of those boxes. If you check MDJ appeal, you'll have to input the MDJ information, the court that it came from. But we're not going to go through that today. That's kind of really getting into the weeds. So we're just going to keep this nice and generic. Then you'll come down here to filing fees and you'll notice that you've got a fee name, which is motor vehicle, and then an amount. So this is because you're filing a tort motor vehicle complaint. This is the associated filing fee. Now, when you come down here to the filing fees, this second filing fees bundle, you'll see that you've got a due from drop down that's required. It's due from the plaintiff because it's a complaint that we're filing. And then you'll see here that there's a drop down fees not required. Here you'll see that the options are government agency, inform of pauperis, or waived by the court. For any e-filers can input anything in here. The problem is that it will be rejected as a filing if it's not correct. So if I were to come in here and say, oh, inform of pauperis, I'm sure that's going to be granted. You can't assume that. You have to have an inform of pauperis order in order to be able to select this option. If none of those apply because you do need to pay the fee, then you'll just leave that blank. And again, you can make comments if you do select, let's say you select waive by court order and you want to make sure that the PROT knows exactly where to find that court order. You can type in the date that the court order was entered so that they can go right to it and say, ah, that's right. For this filing, the fees were waived by the court. But since this is just, we're just doing a generic complaint, we're going to pay the fee. We'll leave all of this as it is and click the next button. Questions come in. What government agencies are exempt from filing fees? I believe there are for example, on what are they called? Forfeitures. Forfeiture petitions that are filed with the PROT's office. They're filed by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I don't believe that they have filing fees, but that's a great question. I would have to look into that. I know that there was something that required that drop down to exist. I just can't quite put my finger on it, but that's what comes to mind initially. Now we get to the upload document page. To upload the document, all you have to do is come to this file portion here and choose your file. I already created a complaint, so I'm going to put that in here. It is important to note that PDFs are required. I made that mistake yesterday. I uploaded the Word document and it should have been a PDF. It's just good practice, I think personally, to make sure that you're uploading PDFs. If you accidentally upload the Word document, once it's accepted for filing, it can't go into our case management system without being a PDF. So the system will convert it to a PDF. So it's okay, but per local rule, you should only be uploading PDFs anyway. But just to let you know that it's not like it's going to go on the docket and be a Word document that can be changed. Then we have a couple of other options under here. This exclude from e-service will apply to original service of process. So because this is a complaint, we are going to select exclude from e-service. When anybody signs up as an e-filer, they are agreeing to accept e-service. So if you're e-filing, you have to accept e-service. That's the same for the clerk of courts with PAC file. It's going to be the same for our civil e-file system. That being said, if opposing counsel is not signed up for e-filing, that's okay. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing thing on each individual case. It's per attorney, per filer. If that makes sense. Other options here, again, comments. I can think of a reason to use this would be if you have to upload multiple files. So this is a question yesterday and I did get an answer. If our file upload limit is 25 megabytes. So if you've got a file that's larger than that, you need to split it up and upload multiple documents here. You would do that by clicking this add another link at the bottom, and another document bundle is going to pop up. You'll have to choose a name and you'll only have two options. It's either going to be an appendix or multiple parts. So if you've got a complaint that you've had to divide up into 3 parts, for example, you'll click multiple parts and then add your second part here. I would recommend using this comment section to say, 1 of 3. This is the other place where you need to indicate that something's confidential. If you click this, if you check this box, you'll then have to fill in a reason. Again, here, if you put other, that would be a good place to use the comment section to let the prot know why you have selected confidential for this filing. Let's see. For original process, does a hard copy need to be delivered to the sheriff? Original process will be the same as it currently is. So I'm going to say yes, unless something has changed because of the pandemic and they're accepting emails now. That's a question for the sheriff's office, what they're going to need in order for original process. All I can tell you at this point, without looking into it a bit further, is that you can't e-service original process. Okay, so now that we've uploaded our complaint, we're just going to click the next button. And we get to the service information page. If this were not original process and there were multiple parties who were signed up for electronic service, they would appear in this chart here. You would have their name, again, user role, who they're representing, email address, and service method that they've chosen. If they are an electronic service recipient, their service method will be electronic. This is the only portion of this page that matters for electronic service purposes. This box down here is basically just notes for you. The prot's not going to be using any of this information to indicate service. But you do have to fill this out. For this one, it's easy. We're just going to put conventional, and I'm just going to put today's date. That is a shortcut. If you're not aware, it exists in our public access as well. If you type C and then tab out, it'll give you the current date. And then these little arrows here, if you click them, it will apply them to everything underneath. So if we had, a long list of parties in this case, you could click that and it would make it the same all the way down. Like I said, this has nothing to do with service. You could put whatever in here and it's not going to count as service. You have to still go through original process. Or if you've got up here the electronic e-service recipients, they have to be served electronically. You can add electronic service recipients here. If you know, for example, that that there is opposing counsel on the case that you're creating and you know that they are an electronic service recipient, you can click on this link and search for them. And it tells you right up here, only existing e-file users can be added as electronic service recipients. So if you search for somebody, you put somebody's name in here and click search and they don't come up, that means that they're not popping up as an electronic service recipient. And so they can't be electronically served. I'm reading a question. How do we designate a portion of the filing as confidential under the public access policy? For when a filing contains a confidential document, the pleading is not confidential, but the attachment is. Great question. Let's go back to the document page and I'll show you. So for each document that you're adding, you have the ability to request confidential. So if this is your original complaint, but this is just an attachment, this is an appendix of some kind, you can request that the appendix is confidential and you can give your confidential reason. And that will mean that the complaint is not marked confidential, but the appendix is, or the attachment. Put this information back in. And click next. How do you obtain a certified copy to serve? That will still come from the PRAT's office. So now we're back to our filing summary page. You'll remember this page from when we picked up on our draft where we left off. It's going to give you all of the case details information, the filing information. This is that originating court information. If you filed an MDJ appeal, the originating court information will show here. You got your party information, the documents that you uploaded, all of them will appear here. And again, it'll show whether you requested it be confidential and the reason that you gave for that and any comments that you have. A question just popped up. Are we still able to do in-person filings? Yes. When this goes live, when e-filing goes live, it will be optional. I know in the criminal, in the PAC filing for criminal cases, that was optional for, I want to say 2 years, and then we just went mandatory at the beginning of this year. I don't yet have a timeline for the civil e-filing when that will transition to being mandatory. But for right now, for the foreseeable future, yes, so you'll still be able to do in-person filings. And the question came up yesterday about the email filings. That will continue as long as the PROT is accepting email filings. I know that that was put in place because of the pandemic. So what the PROT is going to be doing with that moving forward, I'm not sure. That would be a question for that office specifically. But as of right now, email filings are also still accepted. And again, so coming back to these details, it'll show you who's being served electronically. It'll show you the non-electronic service parties and what your option or what your choices were. And then again, your fees down here and who they're due from and if there are any other comments on that. So if you're satisfied with your filing, you would come down to the bottom here and click add to cart. Again, from this page, you also have the option to delete this filing. You will also have the option to add an associated filing. So for example, if you're filing a motion petition and you have something that I can't think of an example at the moment, but if there is typically, 2 filings that you need to be submitting at the same time, that would be this associated filing here, or you can edit it again. Question, how will we obtain timestamp copy of filing? So when you get the notification that your filing has been accepted by the PROTS office, you will be able to come back in here and open up that filing that was accepted and have the timestamp copy. So now we're done with our filing. We're going to click add to cart, and I'm going to rush through this real quick because I'm just noticing the time. So again, we're back to our cart. You'll see that you've got one filing here that you're and the total is that $132.50. In this box down here, it will list, if you've got more than one filing, it'll list all of the filings that you have in your cart. And to move forward from here, you would click the PayPal button. Will the timestamp copies still have copy prohibited? It will have, it won't have that watermark across it, copying prohibited, like you get when you sign into the public access. It will be a clean, just clean timestamped version of that document. So this is what I was talking about before. If you have a PayPal account, you would log in here, or you can check out as a PayPal guest. And I believe if you use the guest checkout, it will not charge that 5% fee. I think that's only if you have a PayPal account. So in order to work through this, you would put in your card number. I have a fake one that we've been using for training purposes. And then you would have to enter your billing information. We'll go with that. Oh, nope. I wish, right? The weather's nicer in Puerto Rico. So you have to put in a phone number, and you have to put in an email. Now, when you come down here, make sure you're paying attention because PayPal is going to want you to create an account. If you don't want to do that, click continue as guest. If you want to create an account, you can certainly do that. But if you just want to check out and continue as a guest, you would click that continue as guest, and it will process your payment eventually. And it'll bring you right back here. This is your submission confirmation. It'll tell you up here that your filing's been submitted for review and processing. You can print this. I don't know if it'll give us a good, yep, it'll come up as a PDF. So here's a receipt for your files. And you'll have a confirmation number, a payment confirmation number, and then your submitted date. And this is what would appear on the docket as the submitted date. You'll notice here that I had 6 notifications before, now I have 7. And that's because we just submitted this filing. That's all I have for right now. Again, we're going to be going over legal organizations and how to organize support staff and them filing on behalf of attorneys and things of that nature in a separate training. Lori will be sending that out. And I encourage all of you to participate in that if you've got, especially if you've got multiple attorneys, multiple support staff that are going to be filing on behalf of different attorneys. It'll be really important to go through that training as well. But I will take questions either if you want to unmute yourself and ask, or if you want to put them in the chat, I'm happy to answer them. And I did want to, thanks, Steve. I'm glad you said something. I do want to circle back to your question about the civil NR. So civil NR is civil non-reportable. So those are items that are not reportable to the AOPC for statistical purposes. Those are very specific types of filing, and chances are if you're not familiar with what that is, you probably aren't filing those things very often. Let me see if I can give you any. here. I know that, so you wouldn't be filing this in e-file if there are transferred custody proceedings. They are classified as civil non-reportable because for AOPC statistic purposes, those don't get reported for our Pathonetary's office. So transfer proceedings go under civil NR. But again, you wouldn't be e-filing those because that would be coming from the other Pathonetary, right? But if you want to file a judgment or file a lien, that's what you might be using this for. Will the filing time out? If so, how long allowed? So the filing will just go into your drafts. It's not going to go anywhere until you hit submit, and it'll just hang out in your drafts forever, I guess, or as long as your profile exists. Will we need to mail timestamp complaints to the sheriff for service, or will the Pathonetary forward them as they did before the pandemic? That will be a question for the PROT specifically. If they were forwarding them for the pandemic, they'll probably go back to doing that, would be my guess. But again, it's a guess. I don't want to speak for the PROT. If filing precipice for writ of summons, will the summons be generated automatically to wait for the process office to generate the summons? You'll need to wait for the PROT to generate the summons. E-filing will not generate any sort of document for you. It's just going to file your document. Thank you all for participating. I'll stick around for